Today, we'll be going over 15 of Walt Disney World's offerings and helping you find out if these are worth it for you and your travel party. Hello and welcome to the Let's Go to Disney podcast. I'm Oliver.
And I'm Lucy.
Today is Sunday, December 15th, and you're listening to episode 66, 15 things that aren't worth it at Walt Disney World. Before we get into today's main topic, here's what's going on in the parks right now. Disney hosted various executives, cast members, media, and travel agents for a Disney Treasure preview cruise. We, like many of you, have watched and read about initial reactions to the ship, and it looks amazing. The new Moana show on board especially is getting rave reviews. We're thinking about a cruise in late 2025, so we'll have to book soon if we want to cruise on the Treasure. Disney Parks blogs announced dates for the 2025 Flower and Garden Festival. It will run March 5th through June 2nd this year. This will be its 30th year, which is exciting, and you can expect to see some decorations and merch commemorating that. The Garden Rocks concert series is confirmed to be returning in 2025 as well, and the lineup for March is already up on the website. March 7th and 8th will be Tommy DeCarlo, the former lead singer of Boston. March 9th and 10th will be Air Supply. 14th and 15th will be Blue October. 16th and 17th will be Rick Springfield. March 21st and 22nd, Herman Hermits starring Peter Noon. March 23rd and 24th will be 38 Special. And the 28th and 29th will be Jason Scheff, who is a longtime singer of Chicago.
The Grand Fiesta Tour attraction in the Pyramid in the Mexico Pavilion will be closed for a couple of months for a routine refurbishment. It'll close on January 6th, and as of right now, it's set to reopen on March 15th. Kali River Rapids will also close for routine work, also on January 6th. It's not unusual for Kali to go down during this time of year. It's a little chillier in Florida, so, they don't really mind closing it down for a couple months.
Because that's one ride that you almost always get soaked on.
I think you always get soaked on it, no matter, or
like
just
a little bit
or a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
So we don't really have an opening date for that one yet, so we'll keep our eye out for that and report when we learn more.
No, absolutely. And I won't get to ride it like January 31st is when I get there, which...
You're very fine with.
Yeah, I'm super okay with.
So we've said this before, and we're going to say it again. This is a very busy time of year trying to get ready for the holidays. We got some more Christmas shopping done yesterday, and we're nearly done, but I do have to get out a couple more times this week just on my own. And then we're going to be wrapping gifts as well as we go on with this week, and we're going to get it all done before the weekend. Hopefully. That's our goal. Yep. It's hard to believe, but Christmas is like a week and a half away at this point.
I know.
We're not sure where the month of December has gone, and it's not slowing down anytime soon.
That's exactly right. And it's our own doing, but we also have home renos starting like super soon, right? So we're having our basement finished, and work for that is set to start the third week of January. So basically right after Christmas. Decorations are going to come down. Like basically we're going to start on the 27th.
That's early for us. We never take our decorations down
exactly,
before the New
right?
Year's.
We never, exactly. Yeah, we usually keep you up until like the first week of January kind of thing.
But we have to be smart this time.
No, exactly. That's life, right? It's going to be...
short-term pain for long-term gain with this reno.
Exactly, right? It's going to be disorienting to be out of sorts for like the 8 to 10 weeks it'll take to complete. Yeah. But it will be great when it's done. We just have to remind ourselves of that.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, 100%. With that said, let's get into today's main topic. So today we'll be talking about some of the offerings and expenses at Walt Disney World that may or may not be worth it for you and your party, depending on what's important to you. Obviously, worth is a super subjective thing, right? Like in a broad sense. For some people, this is a once-in-a-lifetime trip and they've saved for a really long time and they want to experience it all and will pay premium prices for all the bells and whistles. No expense spared. Spared, no expense, right? I'm getting really like Jurassic Park vibes as I'm saying that. But, others may go once or twice a year or more often even, and can, they can take and leave most of the extras and are much more budget conscious. Or maybe this is your once in a lifetime trip, but you don't need or don't want all the extras and you're looking to stretch your dollars as far as they'll go. Really, there's no bad way to vacation at Disney, and the needs and wants of each travel party is going to be unique, and that's totally okay. You could ask two families if they feel it's worth the nearly $300 for a family of 4 to dine at Cinderella's royal table. One family would tell you absolutely, and they do it again and again, while another family might tell you absolutely not, and there's no way they drop that amount of money on a single meal on property. So today, we're going to be talking about some of the most popular offerings at Walt Disney World and really breaking down what can make them worth it for some and not at all for others. We'll give you some of our takes on each of these based on our own experiences and experiences from friends and family that have visited the parks in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so let's kick things off with Park Hopper tickets. So Park Hopper is a paid add-on to your tickets that allows you to visit 2 or more parks during a single day over the course of your trip. A couple of important things to note with Park Hoppers: they can be added at the time of your ticket purchase or anytime before or even during your trip. But And this is a very big but. You cannot add them for individual days. So it's not like Lightning Lane Multipass, for example, where you can purchase it for some and not for all of your park days. Once you decide to add that park hopper option to your tickets, you commit to the cost for the entirety of the length of your ticket. This also applies if you add it during your trip. You're not just going to be paying for that little bit of time that you're adding it. It's the whole time. So I'll explain that a little bit more. So you're 2 days into your 4-day tickets. You decide you want the flexibility of park hopping and want to add park hoppers. You'd still have to pay the whole cost of the park hoppers for those 4-day tickets, even if some of your ticket dates have already come and gone. So it's actually really important that this is something you think you'll want or need to make that decision ahead of time and then commit before your visit starts.
Yes, exactly. Agreed.
Yeah. So is it worth it? Well, this completely depends on how you vacation. If this is your first visit or your first visit in a very long time, park hoppers may actually not be worth it. You could easily do a full day at each park, taking in as much as possible to really immerse yourself and experience each park as fully as possible. You may not need or even want to leave the park you are currently in, so you really wouldn't need those park hopper options. Plus, when you do purchase hoppers, you kind of feel like you almost need to use them. So you may end up park hopping because you feel like you need to maximize your purchase when in actuality, you weren't actually ready to leave the park you were in.
No, exactly. Right. And for others, maybe you're local or, Disney trips are a regular thing for you and your family, or maybe you only have a weekend in the parks and you want to be able to visit them all during a shorter amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
In those cases, right, you could definitely benefit from having the ability to do more than one park during one day.
Absolutely.
To really maximize your time in the parks. And we get that.
I've also seen people trying to challenge themselves to do the 4 parks in one day. You would definitely need the park hoppers in those moments.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if you go all the time and you're okay with visiting certain attractions and leaving others behind because you know you'll be back soon and you'll be able to catch them on your next visit, that's okay too, right? For us, what we found is exactly that. When we first started going to Disney, we didn't bother with park hoppers at all. We did a full day or more in each park and we were completely happy with that. We never needed or felt the pull to go somewhere else during the day. Over time and after a few trips, though, we started to change how we do the parks and we did do park hoppers, right? We liked the flexibility of going from park to park. And now we know what we like. We know what we like less. So we tend to do what we're feeling and then we move on, knowing we can come back during the trip or later in the day, or failing that, we know we'll be back before long and we can always catch it next time. So what it boils down to is just be honest with yourself, right? Don't buy it because, someone told you needed them. Think about how you're going to structure your trip and do what you think is best for how you want to vacation. In the end, we'd say it's not worth it if you have multiple days, 4 days or more at least, so you can visit at least each park once, right? And if you come fairly regularly or you're here for a short trip, then yes, they can certainly be worth it.
Absolutely. So number 2, the next thing we're going to touch about is Lightning Lanes, starting with MultiPass. And quick reminder, MultiPass replaced the old Genie Plus system this past July. So MultiPass may not be worth it depending on which park you're in and when you're visiting the Walt Disney World Resort as a whole. So certain time of years, for example, the end of August into the beginning of September, tend to actually be pretty quiet by Disney standards. On some days, you can certainly get a lot done with relatively low wait times, and you could easily have a great park date without the MultiPass. Even during moderately busy times, if you don't mind waiting in queues, you could actually have a great day at each park without using MultiPass. And it's also not worth it in certain parks. So Animal Kingdom, for example. Animal Kingdom has the least amount of attractions on Lightning Lane. And really, the vast majority of the time, you can definitely get away with not purchasing MultiPass for that park. With a good strategy, if you go in and rope drop Flight of Passage, then head on over to Navi River Journey, then Kilimanjaro Safaris, and then Expedition Everest, Dinosaur, and then maybe a couple of the shows like Festival of the Lion King and the Big Blue and Beyond Finding Nemo show, you could easily do all of this without MultiPass. We've
Agreed,
been there,
100%.
done
we
that.
do that all the time. Yep, exactly.
And then for Epcot, during less busy times, you may also actually not need MultiPass. Again, with a really good strategy, you could hit the big attractions early in the morning. So think Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, Frozen Ever After, and Test Track when it reopens.
Yep.
The other attractions like Soarin', Spaceship Earth, Mission Space generally have pretty manageable wait times, and you can definitely get everything you want it done without the MultiPass.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. The flip side of that is that, again, if this is your once-in-a-lifetime trip and you want to go all out and get as much done as humanly possible in each park for each day of your trip, then yes, of course, MultiPass could be worth it. And there's no doubt that it'll definitely help you get more done in a shorter amount of time. Less time in queues means more time to experience other offerings, so that could definitely be worth it to you.
Yep.
Of course, if you come all the time, if you see something has a shorter wait, right, you might hop in line for it. But if you see that it's too long, you may avoid it knowing that you're going to be able to ride it next time. Again,
So true.
how you structure your day and if it's worth it to you is going to depend on what you're looking for out of your vacation, right? For us, we definitely find that multipass is not necessary, like Lucy said, at Animal Kingdom. Pretty much like any time outside of the absolute busiest times of the year. So it's like Thanksgiving and Christmas. We don't usually purchase multipass for Animal Kingdom and we don't ever feel like we're missing out. We usually do what we just said, right? So we rope drop Flight of Passage, then head to Navi River Journey and Kilimanjaro Safaris, then into the rest of the park. For Epcot, it depends, right? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. If it's a busier time and we anticipate it'll be busier, we purchase it, right? We just pull the trigger and we do it. If we know it's likely going to be less busy, then we likely won't purchase it. Or if we know that we're going to be prioritizing festival offerings, we may also not purchase it in that situation, right? So for Epcot, it usually depends on the time of year for us, but we will say that it's more than worth it at both Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios, and we'll always purchase it for those parks.
Absolutely. And I will say too with Epcot, if we're with our kids, we will probably purchase it.
Just because
they don't like to wait in
they're
lines
queue
as
averse,
long.
we'll say. Yeah.
But if it's just you and I and we're all about the festivals, whatever festival's happening at Epcot, we probably
we
would
usually
get a sense of how it looks and then buy it maybe.
But that's the thing. It's because we'll always go early, right?
Always.
So we usually rope drop. We'll do
drop.
Remy's first thing. Then we'll go to Frozen, Test Track, whatever else we're feeling. And then when 11 o'clock comes around and then
we're ready for food festival booths.
Exactly.
So yeah, it all depends on if we have our kids with us or not. So like we said, it's all going to depend on you and your travel party.
Yep.
So for Lightning Lane single pass, these may or may not be worth it depending on how you're structuring your day and depending on the park. So for Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, and Hollywood Studios, their single pass attractions also have standby queues. So if you're willing, you can absolutely go wait in line. You will get on that attraction. If you rope drop these attractions, you will also get to ride them for free with minimal wait. Well, not really for free. You did pay for your park ticket, but no additional cost and with little to no wait.
Exactly, yeah.
But for Epcot, Guardians of the Galaxy still operates on a virtual queue. So if you're not able to snag a spot in the virtual queue, you'll likely be able to get a purchase of a single pass, no problem. They're usually pretty easy to come by.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, single passes may not be worth it if you are okay rope dropping these attractions or joining the virtual queue for Guardians. We don't usually buy single passes for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train because that's the attraction we always rope drop at Magic Kingdom. We've been doing it forever now.
Yep.
We also don't usually buy it at Animal Kingdom because we also rope drop Flight of Passage. We will, however, buy the single passes for Rise of the Resistance and for Guardians of the Galaxy. Rise is because we usually end up rope dropping Slinky Dog or Tower of Terror. And then by the time we're ready to go to Rise, it's quite a wait usually.
Yeah, exactly.
And then for Guardians, we join the virtual queue, but we just love this ride so much. We want to ride it as many times as we possibly can.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll usually do virtual queue and single pass.
So that we get to ride it twice in one day.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Also for Guardians, we'll actually purchase sometimes even on days when we're at the other parks. We'll just kind of pop on over to Epcot just to basically ride at Guardians. I think we've done that
a snack,
few times now.
Yeah.
So really, for us, it's not worth it if you're rope dropping the attraction and you're okay with just kind of riding it that one time. If you want to ride it twice or you don't want to rope drop or wait in the queue at all, then of course, they can definitely be worth it.
Yeah, agreed 100%. And lastly, this is the newest thing, right? Which is Premier Pass. Now, this is a tough sell for us, okay? So just quickly, Premier Pass is a very new add-on that added to the Lightning Lane lineup. So the price fluctuates between $129 to $449 per person per day. The cost varies depending on the park and the day, and it allows you to skip a standby queue at each attraction on Lightning Lane once during the day without having to book return times. It just includes one park though, so if you were hopping, you wouldn't be able to use it in your second park. Initially, it was only available to guests staying in Deluxe resorts, but recently it was updated to include guests of any Disney resort, as well as Swan and Dolphin, Swan Reserve, and Shades of Green. For us, this cost is prohibitive, right? And it's going to be for a lot of folks, like with the service being as it stands. It just is not worth the cost in our opinion. It's more expensive than its closest parallel over at Universal, which would be their Universal Express Pass. To be clear, that's their lower tier one, right? The one that lets you skip the standby queue once, except Premier Pass is more expensive, closer in price to like the unlimited Universal Express Pass at Universal without the unlimited perks, right?
Exactly.
So,
that's the thing.
Exactly. So for us, again, it's not worth that price. We can get everything done that we want to get done using multipass and single pass, as well as the standby queues. We'd say for most guests, this is true as well. For a family of four to use Premier Pass for one day at Magic Kingdom, it would be over $1,200 on the low end at any time of year, right? Like, so even like September, End of August, it would be...
That's the low end, folks.
That's the low end.
1,200.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas even on busier days where multipass is pushing $30, the same family would pay, around $120 for multipass. Is this service worth, more than $1,000 more for one single day?
No.
For us, it's a hard no, right? It's just...
It is what it is. For us, it's a hard no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The only use case I could see for this is a once in a lifetime trip where money is no object, but we can think of many better ways to spend over $1,000 at Walt Disney World, or saving that money and still getting everything you could have wanted done. For us, this is just not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next topic we'll broach is dining. Dining, like accommodations, is going to be a massive chunk of your vacation budget. So it's definitely worth looking at and considering where you can find some efficiencies to save some money and make your dollars count. Dining around Walt Disney World certainly isn't cheap. There's no doubt about it. And on that note, let's talk about the Disney Dining Plan. The Disney Dining Plan is a way to prepay for your meals before your trip. You have two options, the dining plan or the quick service dining plan. The standard plan includes one table service meal, one quick service meal, one snack, and a resort refillable mug. And the quick service plan is the same, except instead of one quick service and one table service, it gives you two quick service meals. A few things here is that it's only available for guests who booked a Disney resort stay, and you can't just add it for certain days. You add it for all the nights of your stay or none of the days. There is no in between of like picking and choosing here and there. You also can't pick and choose guests on your reservations, meaning you can't split the cost of two adults between two people. And it's the same with your kids. You have to purchase for each person on your reservation. Also, if you don't use the credits, you don't get the money back. You either use them or you lose them.
Yeah, this is 100% a use it or lose it situation.
100%.
Yeah.
So I bet you a lot of people end up losing, and Disney's profiting from that. It's
100%.
like getting a gift card and you don't use that last $1.25 because it's
annoying.
It's
probably more than $1.25. Yeah.
Yes. So the cost is $94.28 per adult per night and $29.26 per child per night for the standard plan, and then $57.01 per adult per night and $23.83 per child per night for the quick service plan.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Disney does a good job advertising and selling the Disney Dining Plan. Like every time I've ever spoken to them on the phone about reservations or whatever, they'll always kind of push the dining plan.
Do you want the dining plan?
Exactly. But be mindful that, we love Disney. That's obvious, right? But they're in the business of making money. And you can bet that they put a lot of time and research into your average guest and how much they spend on food over the course of a trip.
Oh, totally.
Then they took that data and priced it so that it would be just over and above what the average guest would eat, ensuring that they're making money, right? We don't mean to be pessimistic, but it's the reality, right? At the end of the day, it's a business and Disney knows how to rake it in.
Yeah.
To break even with the dining plan, you have to eat a lot, 2 full meals for each person in your party every single day, plus a snack every single day of your trip, including your check-in day, right? So not only that, but you need to consistently order the most expensive items on the menus at table service, quick service, and snack locations. What we found consistently from talking to many people who have used it is that people end up feeling forced to eat more and more often than they would have without the dining plan. They also obviously feel like they have to use their credits, right? And they're also feeling like they're constantly trying to get the most expensive items to come out ahead. Many people end up with unused credits, like Lucy was saying, especially those snack credits. So is it worth it for us? It's also a hard no. It's a money grab. And for 99% of guests, it's just not worth it. Can we see the appeal of it? Of course, right? We get it. The thought of paying for your food in advance sounds great in theory. But again, you're almost certainly, almost for an absolute certainty, going to eat less and therefore spend less if you just ate when you were hungry and kind of paid as you went. Not only that, but sometimes, you just don't feel like a full meal. You can get away with a kid's meal or sharing a meal with your spouse, right? Or skipping a meal altogether. The dining plan does not give you that flexibility, right? You're tied into those meals.
Yeah.
We never once bought the dining plan, and we've done the calculations afterwards and can confirm that every single trip we spent less than we would have if we had purchased the Disney dining plan. We can in good conscience recommend it. It's just not worth it in our opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you just said there. Honestly, there's a lot of times especially when it's just you and me or with the kids even, we're sharing something.
We're sharing meals. We're skipping meals. We order kids' meal.
We are snackers at Disney. We love to try all the snacks, but we're sharing those snacks.
100%.
So for us and for our kids aren't they think they have big appetites, but then they just end up being little grazers too.
Exactly.
So it's just not worth it for us for sure.
Exactly.
So the next thing that's not worth it, still on the topic of dining, is booking too many table service or classic sit-down meals during your trip. Now, don't take this to mean that you shouldn't book any table service meals. That's definitely not what we're saying here, but you should definitely avoid booking more than one table service meal per day, and here's why. Table service meals in Walt Disney World and anywhere really take time. You're looking at least an hour and likely more, especially for those specialty meals like character meals. As you know, time is precious in Walt Disney World. So if you're doing this 2 or 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and supper, it has the potential to take up a lot of your time. Time that could be spent experiencing attractions, shows, and other offerings. Also, it's going to get expensive for you. Restaurants on property are not cheap, and on average, you'll be paying several dollars more per plate, item, snack that you would comparable to items outside of Walt Disney World.
Yes, 100%.
So if you're paying high prices for sit-down meals multiple times a day, that cost is going to add up very quickly. And there are much more cost-effective ways to keep your party fed during your trip. And then lastly, that's a lot of food.
Agreed, yeah.
Likely much, much more food than you and your party normally eat when you're at home during your day-to-day.
Yeah, exactly.
Having a big sit-down meal breakfast and then another big sit-down lunch or dinner later in the day will for sure make you not have any room for anything else, and likely more food that you'll have eaten otherwise.
Yeah, no, exactly. A better strategy, in our opinion, is to have breakfast in your room before you leave for the day, right? So that can be toast, cereal, fruit, whatever you like. And then you can book a table service lunch to break up the day and take a break midday, which is a super good strategy, right? We've done that plenty of times. Or, you snack a bit throughout the day and then take a break around dinner time before pushing through to fireworks or park close. Pro tip here, another way to get table service level food and take up less time and spend less money is to take advantage of the lounges and the takeout windows at table service like restaurants across property. So for example, places like Wine Bar George and Morimoto Asia at Disney Springs do this. They have windows, like takeout windows. Beaches and Cream at Beach Club Resort does this, among many, many others across property. At these places, right, you can order some items from their sit-down menu and take them to go. It's much less expensive and much less of a time suck. Also, the vast majority of restaurants on property have lounges. So think Nomad Lounge at Tiffin's in Animal Kingdom, right? Or Tambu Lounge at Ohana at the Polynesian Resort. Hollywood Brown Derby Lounge at Hollywood Brown Derby, right? That's at Hollywood Studios, or Space 220 Lounge at Space 220 in Epcot. All these lounges are often going to offer select items from the main menu, and many don't require advanced dining reservations, so you can save time, money, and still enjoy table service quality food during your park day. So long story short, it's going to save you time, money, and stomach space to limit yourself to one table service meal per day. And kind of on the same topic, we'd also avoid booking table service meal during exclusive events like Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party and Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party for the same reasons, right? These events are short, much shorter than a park day. So if you're spending an hour or more of that party time eating at a restaurant, that's seriously cutting into your party time, right? And those tickets aren't cheap. So you definitely want to maximize your time at these parties.
Absolutely. And another thing that we find is not really worth it when it comes to dining related items is the fireworks dessert parties. Now, we know some people love these and they think they're 100% worth it, but hear us out. While obviously it is a nice splurge and a lovely way to enjoy the fireworks without being shoulder to shoulder in a sea of people, it's an added cost that at the end of the day gives you views of the exact same fireworks show. Not only that, but the snacks and foods that are available would be much cheaper if your party stopped at Plaza Ice Cream Parlor, for example, and each of you grabbed a snack and enjoyed the fireworks from the hub. For a family of 4, the ticket cost would add up quickly. So again, is it worth it? Well, if this is a splurge trip, then sure, it could be. But again, fireworks are free, folks. Snacks can be more affordable. You can share popcorn, a sundae, whatever, and then see the same fireworks. So again, not really worth it in our opinion, but it is a luxury that has its place depending on what's important to you and what you're doing during your vacation.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. The next thing we're going to cover is doubling up park tickets with event tickets. So here's what we mean. Say you have 4-day park tickets and tickets to Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. If you use one of your park days on your party day, that's certainly an option, especially if you only have 4 days in Walt Disney World. But another option is to save that park day and free up your party day with a resort day. Enjoying the amenities at your resort or visiting Disney Springs for some shopping or going to a specific resort for lunch, whatever your heart desires, right? We say this for a couple of reasons. For one, parties tend to run late. So Mickey's Not So Scary and Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party go till midnight. If you have a park day where you start your day around 8 o'clock or earlier, that's a heck of a long day, folks. And we say that from experience. It's definitely doable, but it's exhausting. And 2, you'll actually be giving yourself a 5th park day because Magic Kingdom parties run 7 p.m. to midnight, but you can enter the park as early as 4 p.m. So while it's not a full day, like a classic full day, it's still a full 8 hours, and you can certainly get a lot done in that time with a good strategy. That way you won't be exhausted from, 16 plus hours of parks in one day, and you'll effectively be giving yourself an extra park day. Now, with that said, we've definitely done the park days on party days. That's just a personal choice, but know that we were just bagged by the end of the day, right? Just like super, super tired. If you have just a few days in the parks, this may not be feasible, right? But if you're flexible with time, this is definitely a much nicer way to experience your park and your party days.
Up next is accommodations. Much like dining, accommodations will be one of, if not the most expensive item in your vacation budget. And on that note, you know that we are strong advocates for staying on property because of the perks it grants you, as well as the intangibles of just staying on Disney property. Having said that, it's not worth paying rack rate or essentially booking a room on property without having some kind of savings. Disney offers deals throughout the year that will save you a little to a lot on your resort stay, and it's pretty rare that savings won't line up with your vacation. Discounts vary depending on the time of year, but generally, you'll find savings ranging from 10% to 35%. These will apply to different demographics. Some savings are for Florida residents, annual pass holders, Disney Plus subscribers, Canadian residents, or just generic savings that are available to all guests. What you'll often see, especially if you're booking your trip far in advance, which we definitely recommend that you do, but you'll see discounts are announced and then released much closer to your actual travel dates. It's always worth checking the special offers tabs on the Disney World website to see if any savings apply to your vacation. If so, you can contact Disney, and if your vacation is eligible for those savings, they will be able to apply those savings to your bookings, and then you'll save the difference, which is actually a really great feeling.
Of course.
I'm trying to think like as we speak here, and I actually can't recall a single time ever where we didn't actually save something on our room, whether that was like a 10%, 35%. I think we've always had some sort of savings. Yeah.
Always some kind of savings.
There's always a savings that can be applied, we promise. Another lesser known fact is that bounce back offers are in play. They're not advertised much, but essentially if you book a vacation while you're on your current vacation or in the week immediately following your vacation, you're going to save on your next booking, and it can be actually quite significant. We saved 30% on our room reservation at the Caribbean Beach Resort for our stay next May. We booked that immediately following our September trip. And then for Oliver's solo trip, January 31st to February 7th, he's doing a split stay between Art of Animation, Pop Century, and Port Orleans Riverside, and he saved on each of these reservations.
Yeah, all three of them.
Yeah, so long story short, is it worth staying on property? Absolutely. Is it worth paying rack rate? Well, yes, in our opinion.
Because you're staying on Disney.
Yeah, exactly, because you're actually on property. But please, please, please don't pay rack rate. There will almost certainly be savings somewhere. So it's not worth paying more when you can certainly apply some savings to your vacation.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. And while we're on the topic of accommodations, is it worth booking the most expensive accommodations on property? So think deluxe resorts or villas, or even moderate resorts. What would make these worth it versus the most affordable rooms on property like standard rooms at All-Star Movies, Music, and Sports? Well, the answer to this is it depends on how you're going to be vacationing. Deluxe rooms on property typically offer proximity to the parks. Lots of them are actually walking distance to at least one park, and they offer more and generally better dining options among other benefits. But if you're the type of guest that's going to be in the parks, rope drop to park close, and literally only be in your room long enough to shower and sleep, then we'd say there's no way deluxe accommodations are worth it. If you're literally only coming back, crashing and doing it all again the next day, we suggest saving a few $100s a night and stay in the barest bones rooms on property. You can use that money for, experiences, dining, and other offerings while you're out exploring. Now, the flip side of that is if you're, much more relaxed in how you're vacationing, you're going to be sleeping in, you schedule a couple of resort days during your stay, it could be much more worth it to stay at a deluxe resort where you're actually going to be taking advantage of the dining options, the pools, and the other recreation options. We usually do deluxe resorts with the kids, say for this next trip where we're staying at Caribbean Beach, like Lucy said. We do this because we'll usually work in at least one resort day, and we'll also come back during the day to swim, so it feels more worth it to us in those situations. When it's just Lucy and I, we won't go deluxe, right? We just won't do it. We'll actually almost always stay at Coronado because we just love it so much. So again, consider your party, consider how you plan on doing your vacation. And if you know you're not going to be in your room or resort for any length of time, save your money. If you plan on spending lots of time at the resort and really exploring and using the resort amenities, then consider something more or something with more to offer. In the end, just be honest with yourself and you'll likely be much better off for it.
Absolutely. And you honestly can't go wrong with any of the Disney property resorts.
No, we've said that before, right? Value, moderate, deluxe, you'll almost certainly Disney have property, a great stay.
You're in the bubble. Yeah, it's a good time.
Exactly.
Switching gears now, let's cover Memory Maker. So in case you didn't know, Memory Maker is an add-on to your ticket that gives you access to all of your PhotoPass photos during your trip. The cost is $185 when purchased in advance and $210 when purchased during or after your trip. A single day of Memory Maker is $75. Individual pictures are around $20. So is this worth it? For us, generally speaking, the answer is no, and here's why. First off, you need to be honest with yourself. Are you going to be stopping constantly to have your photo taken to make this worth it? And then the bigger question, will you actually use these photos for prints in your home, or are they just going to sit on your phone, never to be viewed? Also, know that the PhotoPass cast members will take photos with your phone, so you can get the very similar shots with your smartphone that will cost you absolutely nothing, and then you'll be more than good enough to post on social media or print for a vacation frame in your house. You could print that at your local Walmart for like mere cents. So are you wanting to spend $200 for that service? We'd say for the vast majority of people, for the vast majority of time, it's just not worth it. And if you do get a photo that you absolutely love and want that specific photo, purchase the single photo, and then it's still only a fraction of the cost of purchasing the services as a whole. Now, we will caveat this by saying that if you're adding this to an annual pass, it's much more worth it. Oliver just recently added it to his annual pass this year, and we only need one person to add it to have the benefit from it. It's only $99 for the year, and you get your PhotoPass photos all year long. That's a much easier sell and definitely makes much more sense over time. And even then, could we get away with our phones? Absolutely. This is a splurge, but much less of a splurge than the $200 for just the one trip. So again, if you intend on stopping all the time, you will be printing a ton of these photos and you want the best possible quality, then maybe. But for most folks, the photos you get with your phone are going to be more than enough. And honestly, we found that trip over trip, the candid photos that you take intimately are just like the most treasured. And those are the ones that you ultimately will decide on using anyways. Make that of what you will.
Yeah, no, exactly. All right, now magic bands. Now you might say, what? Don't you guys advocate for magic bands? And the answer is yes, right? We definitely do. We love our magic bands. You know, we all have magic bands, all four of us. We love them and we wouldn't vacation without them. But the broader question, could we vacation without them? Absolutely. It's a luxury that is definitely nice to have, but not a must-have. Lots of folks don't use magic bands. They use physical card tickets or even their phones or smartwatches. You don't need a magic band at all. They're not cheap. They're $29.99 on the low end, and a specialty and limited edition magic bands can be near $100 or more. When you have a resort stay and are a U.S. resident, you can actually order the magic bands ahead of your trip for a discounted rate, which makes it like more worth it, right? When it comes to cost. This used to be available for international guests to ship to their resorts before their stay, because they don't ship magic bands internationally, but this option was actually removed, and so it's no longer available for international guests, which is disappointing. So for a family of four, you're looking at least $120 on average on the low end for 4 magic bands. So is that worth it to you? Only you can really know that, right? Now, these are reusable, right? So our current ones we've had since, I think, 2022, right? And they're rechargeable, and we've used them on every trip since. So again, it's more worth it for us because we're there, you know, pretty regularly. But again, don't feel like you need to get these. Everything you can do with a magic band, you can do with your phone. So if you're thinking, you know, why would I spend $30 or more per person for something my phone can do? That's valid, right? We understand that sentiment 100%, and we agree. If that's your take, then it's not worth it. We personally appreciate the convenience of tapping the band, but we could definitely live without them. So it's taster's choice here. If this sounds like a fun thing for you and your family to partake in, and maybe, you know, you're coming back, then by all means, go ahead. If this is an added expense that you just can't justify or it doesn't sound appealing, then leave it. You know, you're going to save money and you can put that towards something else.
Absolutely. Now let's talk transportation and specifically rideshare services. We touched a bit on transportation last week, and we talked about rideshare services to get around property. We know some people will avoid Disney transportation and take rideshares all over property during the course of their trip. And while we can appreciate that, and we do advocate for rideshares when you're tight for time, it should not be your go-to. By and large, if you can get there with Disney transportation, why wouldn't you take the free transportation? Sure, it might take a touch longer, but Disney transportation is very reliable for the most part, and of course, it's completely free. If you're taking rideshares constantly over the course of your trip, that cost is really going to add up. Again, we're not against taking it to get somewhere where Disney transportation won't take you, like resort to resort, for example, or if you're running late for a dining reservation. Aside from that, though, take Disney transportation. It's reliable, it's easy, and it's a no-brainer for us. Taking rideshares everywhere, not worth it.
Yeah, agreed. Another thing that's definitely not worth it, buying overpriced items on Disney property, right? Now, you might say, isn't everything overpriced at Disney?
Yes.
And the answer is yes, right? Of course it is. And inevitably, you're going to be purchasing some of these, whether, that's food, souvenirs, and pretty much anything else you're going to be spending your money on during your vacation. But there are items that you can purchase ahead of time or purchase outside of the Disney bubble that could save you some major money. First thing is groceries and pharmacy items like over-the-counter meds. So you should bring some basic meds with you, like painkillers, think like Tylenol, Advil, some motion sickness medication. We always have Gravel on hand for our son because he gets motion sickness on certain rides.
I'm getting older.
No, exactly. Band-aids for blisters, hand sanitizer, and similar items that you think you may need during your trip.
Suntan. Or not suntan, but sunscreen.
Yes, exactly. And instead of buying food from the merchandise locations on Disney property, you can use grocery delivery services and have groceries delivered right to your resort. You'll pay less per item this way, like for sure. We also suggest packing appropriate clothes because depending on the time of year, you're going to want to bring layers, right? So if you're traveling during the winter months, so think like November through like February-ish, it can get pretty chilly, especially in the mornings and evenings. You don't want to have to drop $80 or more on a sweater or jacket because you got cold, right?
Been there, done that.
Exactly. So bring one with you, right? You can bring ponchos from the dollar store or umbrellas or whatever you choose to protect you from the rain. These items like ponchos will be marked up big time in the parks. Reusable water bottles as well. You should have one of those on hand. We're huge advocates for these. There are water bottle refill stations all over Disney property, and you can find them right on the My Disney Experience app. So there's no reason that, you can't find water somewhere.
Absolutely.
Not only that, but you can go to any quick service location, like counter service location, ask for a cup of ice water, and they're going to give it to you. No questions asked. So long story short, the more you can bring in with you or purchase outside of the Disney bubble, the more money you're going to save. Some items are definitely not worth buying on property. Now, of course, it's fun to be able to grab some souvenirs on your trip, right? But ideally, that's something that you budget for, right? Something that you really want, not something you feel forced to buy in a pinch.
Absolutely. I will say too, we obviously like to buy Disney t-shirts and stuff like that, but I have gone to our local Walmart and I have bought a bunch of t-shirts for the kids, for me even.
Yeah,
Walmart's and I'm paying like
Joe
$12 for a t-shirt versus I would be paying like $40.
No, so exactly. Like you bring up a good point because
if you want your kids to be decked out in the Disney, which I totally get, I want my kids to wear Disney something every single day. You probably can find it cheaper at your local. If you're American, I think you guys have Targets, all those fun stores that we don't have here. And then for us, it's Walmart. We have our superstores, which is our grocery store with Joe Fresh. They always have Disney stuff on hand. And that's usually where I will load up for the kids.
No, 100%. And even like Dollarama will have
those are our
Disney
dollar
items,
stores.
like socks and stuff like that.
It's just there are ways of loading up so that you can look fun, festive Disney every single day without having to purchase all of that once you get to the bubble.
Yeah, 100%, because it'll be way more expensive. And again, like Lucy said, if you're a US resident, okay, cool. But if you're from somewhere else like Canada, for example, that exchange rate is brutal. So,
you'll feel the pinch.
Yeah, 100%.
And the last thing we'll cover that may not be worth it for you and your party is new offerings. So Disney and social media are really good at hyping up new offerings, and we're guilty of this as well. And buying into the hype of new restaurants, new stores, and similar things is great. And we always love experiencing something new on Disney property, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to buy into the hype of every new thing. We're going to give you an example. So say a restaurant just opened and it's getting a lot of attention, but it serves cuisine that most of your party may not be interested in. Does that mean you should go? Absolutely not. Or maybe there's a returning event like Jollywood Nights, for example. It's a great party, but it has much more of an adult vibe, and the offerings definitely cater to a bit of an older audience. Does this mean that you can't take your kids here and shouldn't participate? Well, no, of course not. But does it mean that just because it's new doesn't mean it's right for you and your party? Absolutely, that's what it means. If you have a family with young kids, we definitely would suggest Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party over Jollywood Nights for sure. And then vice versa if you're here for an adults-only trip. So long story short, don't feel like you need to do every single new thing. Just because it's new, ask yourself, is this right for us?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, right? And you're right, because there's a lot of hype around Disney and, the different things that happened throughout the year and the new things that are opening. And a lot of it is cool, right? Yeah. So for example, like Cake Bake Shop, super cool, fun treats and fun food, but it's like wildly expensive. So if you're budget conscious or you already have, reservations for splurges at like places like Cinderella's Royal Table, then don't go. Don't go to Cake Bake Shop. You don't have to.
It's new.
Yeah, exactly. So with all that said, you likely noticed a trend with today's episode, right? So while the topic was things that aren't worth it in Walt Disney World, worth is a super subjective thing. what is worth it to us may not be worth it for you. And what's not worth it for your friends who went to Disney 2 years ago and they're telling you not to bother with, well, you might really enjoy that, right? So at the end of the day, only you know what's best for you and your family. And what we want in the end is to give you information, right? So that you can turn that around and process that information and plan a great vacation that's going to be the best fit for you and your party. There are some things that are universally loved, right? That should be experienced. And of course, we get that, right? But there's lots in between that is going to differ from family to family, and that's totally okay. You vacation how you best see fit, and you'll likely be much better off for it.
Absolutely. Our kids always want the bubble wands when we're there. It's a hard no for us.
And we know why, because they leak and they're never going to play with them again.
Exactly.
And then we have to take them on a plane back to...
Exactly. But we see millions of families with those bubble wands.
Yeah.
So, and it was worth it for those parents to have 5 minutes of peace while their kids push a button.
And 100%.
And we get it.
And don't think we're judging you.
And
if you're out
driving,
there and you're like, I have bubble wands like sitting in my closet, and like, hey, we get it. Like no judgment whatsoever.
But for us, because we have to get back on a plane and our kids are a bit older now, the hype of having one is just not worth it.
Yeah, it's not happening, 100%. So with that said, thank you so much for joining us today to talk Disney. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And as always, if you could leave us a rating and review, it would be greatly appreciated. If you choose to do so, you can leave it right on Apple Podcasts. And for Spotify, you can leave a rating.
You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Let's Go.to-Disney, as well as on our Facebook page, Let's Go to Disney. We share some helpful reels here as well as some fun ones. The link tree in the show notes will take you to all of our socials.
Have a great day, and we'll see you real soon.